feel, hope, wish, believe, request, pray that people read the Mahabharata before forming opinions about Karna. He examined the Mahabharata and said that there are 67 stories or upkathas or upakhyanas in the Mahabharata. Why did he fight on the side of adharma, on the side of the Kauravas, is a question that all of us have. Why didn't he simply switch sides? Dronacharya, on the other hand, he grew up as a friend in the same ashram as a friend of Prince Drupad. Mahabharata tells us war is horrible. The descriptions of the dead are terrible if you read the Mahabharata. The way they describe people lying without limbs and bleeding and all. So war is not good. That we have the right to action. We don't have the right to the fruits.
Namaste and a very warm welcome to the Nationalist Madrasi. In today's episode, we have a very special guest who has written two books. One is The Prey and Predators, and the other book is on Vyasa's Mahabharata. Today, we are going to discuss about the Vyasa's Mahabharata in detail. We are joined by none other than author and technocrat, Mr. Abhinav Agarwal. Sir, thank you so much for joining with us. And so it's a pleasure always talking to you. I think this is our first offline podcast.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your timing, and thank you so much for your time, sir, especially.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, Vyasa's Mahabharata. What made you to inspire to write about the 67 upakhyanas which is present there? Because a lot has been told about upakhyanas as well, and what role that the upakhyanas plays in the Mahabharata, especially we have read a lot about that, and the 67 upakhyanas which you specially mentioned and which you have wrote extensively all about. What inspired you to write about this upakhyanas, sir?
In the Mahabharata, there are many stories and subtales. Some of them are more popular ones that we have heard, such as Nal Damayanti and Amba and Satyavati and so on. Savitri. But there are many others that are somewhat unknown. Now, there was a scholar by the name of Alf Heilpeitel, who was a very renowned, very good scholar on the Mahabharata and did a lot of research on it. He examined the Mahabharata and said that there are 67 stories or upkathas or upakhyanas in the Mahabharata that are actually referenced as upakhyanas. And he had a criteria for doing that by saying that in the Parv Sangrah Parv, if it is called as an upakhyana, if the text of the Mahabharata calls it an upakhyana, then it is going to be counted as an upakhyana in that list. Doing so, he came up with a list of 67 such tales that met the criteria. To be sure, in the Mahabharata itself, there are more than 500 such tales, but only 67 that fit this criteria. So when I was looking at people who are interested in the Mahabharata, they want to write about the Mahabharata, a lot of them write about the characters such as Draupadi and Yudhishthir and Arjuna and so on. When I wanted to write about the Mahabharata, this was one topic that interested me. So I looked around and said that, okay, has anyone retold these 67 tales in English for a modern, popular way? I couldn't find anything. So right there and then I found my niche that, okay, this is something that has not been attempted before, let me do that. And I used the late Swargya Bibek Dev Roy's translation as a source, and when I told him about this idea, he said, excellent, go ahead and do it and all. And he was gracious enough, and he agreed immediately when I requested him that, would you mind writing a foreword for this book? So he readily agreed, and he wrote a very nice foreword that I am so glad he did.
Sir, there are 18 parvas which you broadly discussed about in your book as well. Let us touch the important parvas where you mentioned. I would like to go on to the 6th chapter, where that is the Bhishma Parva, and then followed by Karna, Drona and Shalya Parva as well. And Bhishma Parva. So, immediate question which rises to our mind is like, Bhishma is a wise man, but why did he stand by the side of Adharma? And so what are the other qualities which you saw in Bhishma which is not known to the people or to the society as well? Because a lot, if we keep deep diving into Mahabharata, we can find a lot of unknown factors every day as well. So, what are the factors that inspired you from Bhishma?
Bhishma is certainly one of the greatest warriors in the Mahabharata, and he was therefore also the commander of the Kaurava army for the first 10 days of the Kurukshetra war. Now, why did he fight on the side of Adharma, on the side of the Kauravas, is a question that all of us have. Why didn't he simply switch sides? And one is that Bhishma was loyal to the throne. He couldn't change sides just on a whim like people in political parties do. He couldn't do that. The second is that at the start of the war itself, Bhishma provides this answer in a manner of speaking when Yudhishthir goes to the three warriors, the three great warriors of the Kaurava army, Bhishma, Drona and Kripacharya, and asks them for their blessings, and each one of them gives them the blessings, and then he also asks them that tell me how to defeat you, how to kill you, and so on. And Bhishma and Drona both say that the time for my defeat has not come, so come back to me later with this question, and they do that later on. In the case of Bhishma, when Yudhishthir approaches him, Bhishma sort of laments that the Kauravas have robbed me through wealth. And in that sense, we also get a glimpse, a hint into why Bhishma was with the throne, that he got his employment. We may not like the word, but the Kauravas had employed Bhishma. He got his wealth, he got his salary, he got his wages, call it what you will, from the Kuru throne. He couldn't betray it in a manner of speaking. So even though he knew that Dharma was not on the side of the Kauravas, he chose to fight so as to repay the debt that he had from the Kurus.
Sir, we can say that Mahabharata intentionally surrounds around some of the main characters as well, like Bhishma, Dronacharya, Karna, Duryodhana, and what is that? Pandavas, they are the heroes actually. So, and we can say like that. Tell us something about the Drona's internal conflicts, because in your book, I think in the 7th Parva, you discuss about Guru Dronacharya as well. So, what are its internal conflict? Where is internal conflict way bigger than everyone? Like he was also by the side of Kauravas, I think. So, where is internal conflict, and how did he managed, and why was he was also on that side actually? So please explain us to what went wrong with Drona as well, sir.
See, Bhishma, on the one hand, you can say that Bhishma was also born as a result of a curse. Sage Vashishta cursed Bhishma and his other 7 brothers, and we are told about this in the Mahabhishopakhyaana. After he was born, he lived obviously a life where he was a prince, then he had to renounce, he gave up, he said, I will renounce my claim to the throne, I will stay a brahmachari all my life so that his father Shantanu could marry Satyavati. Dronacharya, on the other hand, he grew up as a friend in the same ashram as a friend of Prince Drupad. Then life moves on, they grow up, Drupad becomes the king of Panchal, Dronacharya becomes a sage and he marries Kripi, who's Kripacharya's sister. They have a son Ashwathama. Very poor Brahmins, they can't even afford a cow that would give them milk, and therefore Ashwathama doesn't have milk. And we have heard that story that how his friends make fun of him by tricking him into drinking this mix of flour and water. Dronacharya decides, maybe he remembers his friend and he says, I'll go ask my friend for a cow. Dronacharya at this point call it what you will, I say perhaps it was ego. He doesn't approach Drupad as a king. He doesn't say that I am a Brahman, you are a king, your dharma is to do dan and therefore give me a cow. He goes to Drupad and says, recognize me. Drupad is a king, he is in his court, he doesn't perhaps like being addressed this way. He tells Dronacharya, he insults him. Who are you? You should remember your place. I am a king. You're a good for nothing. You're a Brahman. Dronacharya is insulted. He leaves. He becomes later on, after some time, he becomes the guru of the Kuru princes. Both the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And as Guru Dakshina, then he says that, okay, bring Drupad to me, and the Kauravas fail, the Pandavas succeed, and they bring Drupad, and at that point, Drona tells Drupad that I am taking half your kingdom, you take the other half, and now we are equals and all. He had a huge love for his son. It was his love for his son also that kept him tied in a way to the Kurus, to the Kauravas, because Ashwathama was a great friend of Duryodhana. And this is something that Yudhishthira also says, and other people also say, that Dronacharya will go wherever Ashwathama is, and Ashwathama is a friend of Duryodhana. So Dronacharya was also in that sense tied to the Kauravas. And Dronacharya was more interested in winning the war than even Bhishma was. Bhishma had told Duryodhana straight up that I will fight, I will kill 1 lakh warriors of the Pandava army every day, but I will not kill the Pandavas. Dronacharya made no such promise. So much so that on the 13th day, as commander of the Kaurava army, he is the one who tells the Kauravas how to defeat and disarm and then kill Abhimanyu. So Dronacharya was a much more grey character than Bhishma in this entire epic, in my mind.
Talking about one of the main character in the Mahabharata, Karna, was he loyal, or was he took in a wrong way by this generation people, or was he portrayed as a hero character for all these years, and was he a hero or an anti-hero? Because like in Mahabharata, the people who have followed Dharma, or people who believe in Dharma, see Karna as an anti-hero as well, or not even an anti-hero, we can say it as a villain character. So I wouldn't name it as a hero over there before putting an anti, and so we can label him as a villain character over there in the entire Mahabharata. What is your view on Karna, sir? Because like a large section of people believe Karna in a righteous way, and he is known for his loyalty, and he is known for his giving things, and he is known for many things as well. He is known for his friendship with Duryodhana and so and so, and movies has been made on him, and speaking all about this good things which has been done. So what do you think about the character of Karna?
I really feel, hope, wish, believe, request, pray that people read the Mahabharata before forming opinions about Karna. Yes, Karna is a tragic figure in many ways, because he was abandoned by his mother. He is a son of the sun god Suryaputra, and yet he is abandoned. He lives, he grows up as the son of a Suta, Adirath. He is not recognized by anyone as a Pandav. He doesn't get his rightful due all his life long. It is only after he is dead, when the Pandavas are performing the Shraddh, the Antim Sanskar of the relatives, that Kunti says that there is one person who also deserves your Antim Sanskar, and that's when she says that it was Karna who was the eldest among you. And Yudhishthira is heartbroken, and he curses Kunti that women will not be able to keep a secret after this. So take it in whatever manner. That is one side of Karna. But on the other hand, what kind of a friend was Karna, who kept on guiding his friend down the wrong way? In the game of dice, it is Karna who utters the most insulting words towards Draupadi. How can you have that person as a hero in any form or manner? He is the one who says in front of everyone, in front of the Pandavas, the elders, that Draupadi is a prostitute for marrying 5 people. And there is nothing wrong, there is no shame if she is dragged to the assembly hall with or without clothes. Even if she is dragged without clothes on, there is nothing wrong in it. And in case people don't believe that, they are free to go check the Mahabharata. This is, I can cite chapter and verse where Karna is quoted as saying so. He is the one who goads Duryodhana into going into the forest and gloating over the Pandavas once they have started their vanvas of 12 years. And what happens? Duryodhana gets into an altercation with the Gandharvas. He is captured. They fight. Karna runs away. What kind of a friend abandons his friend? So Karna was not that great a figure in my opinion, and people should read the Mahabharata before forming an opinion. Yes, it is possible to sympathize with Karna, no doubt about it, but to put him on some sort of a pedestal as some authors have done and write very, very laudatory novels about him, I don't think that is based in what the Mahabharata tells us about Karna.
Sir, what made the people to look on to Karna as a hero? Because you said the first thing you told is like read the Mahabharata. That is okay. And see, you can't simply give a person to a heroic stature, right? But what made them? Are they selective? Are they portraying? Are they vehemently taking the stand of anti-dharma and portraying Karna as a hero?
See, to some extent, it is creative liberty also. I want to write about the Mahabharata, I want to write about a character. Karna is obviously a very strong character in the Mahabharata, I want to write about him. So you choose the positive aspects of Karna, that he was a lifelong friend and he was known for Dan and all. Though even that, there is some nuance to it. If we talk about the Kavach Kundal episode, maybe I'll talk a little about that. Karna was not that great giver as we are told in the Mahabharata itself, but it is the writer's creative liberty to do that. On the other hand, I say that if you're taking an epic like the Mahabharata, it's not just any story, it's a revered epic of an entire civilization. Do you really have the right to distort characters the way you do if you portray? Some have made Duryodhan into a hero. Some have said that Krishna was a scheming person and Bhishma was not a good person and Shakuni was a misunderstood person. There are authors who do this. I won't name them and shame them. I hope they have the sense of shame to realize what they have done. Do you have the right to desecrate an epic just because you think you are a writer, you can do that? I think these are broader questions that need to be asked as to, do you have the adhikar to do that? Do you have the shraddha to do that? I don't think they have the kind of reverence, affection, respect for the epic. I don't even know if they have read the full epic. They're going by whatever they are. But it's, in my mind, I don't have much patience or respect for people who do that.
Okay, understood. Sir, one small question about Karna, especially. Was the situation made him to be more adharma in the sense because he was on the side of Kauravas, and he was the younger of, he was the elder of all these five as well, and he was born to Kunti. And what made Karna to be more anti-heroic? Because it is the situation which made, or it is the anger amongst these five which made, or it is the anger among the Arjun which made him to be more anti-heroic, or what made so? Because see, it would be somewhat a situation which made, because see, all these Kauravas had a reason and something to be against these people and to stand against Krishna as well. So what made Karna especially?
Karna is referred to as one of the, in Hindi at least, Chandal Chaukdi as it is called sometimes. So, the gang of evil four people. Who are they? Duryodhan, Dushasan, Shakuni and Karna. He was not on the side of dharma. If you say that, life and circumstances forced him or they pushed him towards being adharmic, then I would say no one had a tougher life than Krishna. I mean, he was literally born inside a prison, whose siblings were murdered by his own uncle. So if anyone, and even when he was growing up in Vrindavan and all, Kans tried to have him killed so many times. No one tried to kill Karna after he was born. His mother abandoned him, yes, but then he was found by Adhirath and Radha, who brought him up with the most love and affection they could. So circumstances were worse for Krishna than they were for Karna. It was in the end a choice that Karna made to align himself with the likes of Duryodhan and Dushasan. And that is also something that the Mahabharata tells us, that we have choices. It is our choices that make us who we are. Krishna had a choice, Arjuna had a choice, they made their choice. Karna had a choice, Every single time he had a choice, the poor fellow made the wrong choice.
Sir, we'll talk about the powers of Karna and we'll compare it with Arjun as well, as because for the for the sake of know who is powerful, because these two are compared in sake. We'll talk about it later as well. Sir, in Shaulya Parva, you mentioned about the emotions which has to be displayed in at the time of war. That is the psychological warfare which has been used. How important is to show emotions in war? Because at one point of time we will be going by the side of emotions. Will be anger which drives sometimes, and it would be emotions which drives us many times. So what kind of an emotion should one display at the time of war, sir? Because I think this is the right time we speak about the India-Pakistan issue is also going on, and as a general human being or a general citizen of India, we are driven by the emotions, we are driven by the anger on what has happened in Pahalgam. Like, what do you see? Because it is the emotions which is driving the war, or how an emotion plays an important role in the war, sir?
See, war is, you have misery, death, destruction in war. War is not something that you watch, in the luxury of your living room on a large screen TV with sound effects and all. It is horrible. The Mahabharata tells us war is horrible. The descriptions of the dead are terrible if you read the Mahabharata. The way they describe people lying without limbs and bleeding and all. So war is not good. You must do whatever you can to avoid war. If nothing else, for the simple reason that the Mahabharata also tells us that the outcome of a war is uncertain. Once you start a war, you don't know which side will win. You hope that the side which has dharma on its side will win, but there is still uncertainty over it. Which is why the entire Udyog Parva is about the efforts made to avoid war. When war becomes inevitable, when war is at your doorstep, when the other side has refused all overtures of peace like Duryodhan did, when Sri Krishna made the offer to him that forget about the half the kingdom, at least give 5 villages and I will convince Yudhishthira to take these 5 villages. Duryodhan says, I'm not going to give even as much land as can be taken up by the tip of a pointed needle. This is how much Duryodhan was. Then you have to win a war. There is nothing, no half measures of it. In the middle of a war, you shouldn't start saying, I will now negotiate for peace. To give you an example, in the Mahabharata itself, at the end of the war, when Duryodhan's army has been destroyed and he himself is hiding in a lake, and you have some hunters who inform Yudhishthira that this is where Duryodhan is hiding. Yudhishthira goes there along with the other Pandavas and they challenge Duryodhan, and Duryodhan says, you know what, I don't want to fight. I'll go. I'll take sannyas, I'll go to the forest, I'll become a sannyasi. And Yudhishthira at that point doesn't say that, okay, let's now settle. Yudhishthira says we have to fight. The kingdom is not yours to give away. And he says that if in this battle both of us remain alive, people will have a doubt as to who won the war. Even Yudhishthira, who we somehow say that, Yudhishthira was always for peace and all, even Yudhishthira is very, very clear that once a war has started, it has to be won, and it can only be won when one side is killed and the other one is victorious. If this was the lesson that the Mahabharata tells us, I really would like to know why anyone should think different in this yug. This is not the yug for yudh, but I'm sorry, this is not the yuga for, making peace with the enemy at all cost.
Understood, sir. We'll talk about that in the Udyog Par as well as a continuation. Sir, we'll touch upon each Parvas in a quick glimpse as well. Sir, in the Adi Parva, what we can say, do you think the birth stories of Dhritarashtra, Pandu, Vitura reveal a deeper commentary on karma and destiny, sir? Because all these were cursed at some point of time as well. And can we say that can we come to a conclusion that there's a deeper reveal on the karma and destiny?
In the case of Dhritarashtra and Pandu, I think the cause and effect and the karma phal are very, very stark, because when Ambika is sent to Krishna Dwapa and Vedvyasa, she closes her eyes. Dhritarashtra is born blind. In the case of Ambalika, when she goes to Vedvyasa, she trembles and she goes pale at the sight of Vedvyasa, who's been living in the forest, who's covered in dust and mud, and probably not a very good sight to look at. Pandu is born with bad health, and he also dies young. He dies several years later, but as we are told, he suffers from ill health. That's also a very, very direct connection between karma and the consequences of karma. In the case of Vidur, it's interesting because Vidur is the wisest of the three, yet he is born not to a queen but to a maid. He never gets to rule, even after the war. And yet we are also told that he was the incarnation of Dharma, of Yamraj. There are two people in the Mahabharata who are shown to be incarnations of Dharma. One was Yudhishthir and the other one is Vidur. Vidur was the wisest among all, and yet he didn't, because of a curse uttered by none other than sage Animandavya, which is covered in the Animandavya Upakhyana, where Animandavya curses Yamraj to be born on earth, to be the wisest and yet never be king. So the effects of your karma don't necessarily manifest themselves in that same life. Sometimes they can span even lifetimes, as we are told in the case of Vidur, as we are told in the case of Bhishma, as we are told in the case of even Amba, for example.
Sir, going to the Shava Parva, that is the assembly, there you speak about one important thing called of the game of dice as well. So it is just a plot device or a metaphor or more of a gambling which has been happening, because we all know Shakuni is known for the game of dice as well, and whatever happened to Draupadi's treatment in the Kuru's court, what does it reveal the dharma, power as well as women in the ancient society? So
see, one immediate lesson is that don't indulge in things you are not good at. Shakuni knew that Yudhishthira loved gambling, but he was not good at it. Shakuni tells Duryodhan this, that Yudhishthira, your elder brother, loves gambling, but he's not good at it. And therefore he says, I will use his addiction, his fondness for gambling to take away all his riches, because I know how to control the dice and Yudhishthira doesn't. The second thing that it tells us is that gambling is like any other addiction. You have this gambler's urge to win everything with the next roll of the dice. This is what happens when people go to a casino. They lose money, but then they keep on playing so that they keep hoping that they will win everything back with the next roll of the dice. And this is what happens with the Yudhishthir. He keeps losing his horses, the servants that he has, his palace, his riches and all, and yet he keeps playing. Every time the Shakuni keeps goading him, win back everything with the next roll. He ends up losing his brothers, even himself, and even his wife. Now, whatever rationalizations people come up with to defend the Yudhishthir, I don't think it is something that is excusable. Even in the game of dice, when this happens, Bhim loses his temper and he says that I will break Yudhishthir's arm, with that arm that gambled away Draupadi. So to the point that the status of women was degraded and all, my submission would be that had women had no respect or status in society at that point, Yudhishthir's gambling away Draupadi would not have raised any eyebrows. People would have said this happens all the time, so what's the big deal? No. Right till the very end, this is something that keeps rankling in the hearts of the Pandavas, that such an injustice was done to Draupadi. On the 17th day, when Bhim kills Dushasan and he breaks open his chest and he actually drinks his blood, which in itself is a gory sight, but Bhim fulfills one of the two promises that he had made in the game of dice. That one is he will break Duryodhan's thighs, and the other one is he will drink Dushasan's blood. He tells him that you dared to touch Draupadi and drag her by the hair. This is the punishment that I am giving you for that. So the status of women can be borne out by the fact that this treatment of Draupadi was a very, very outlier kind of an incident, which provoked, in many cases, became the cause of the entire war. If women didn't have a high enough status in society, You wouldn't have gone to war over the ill treatment of one woman. So my submission is that don't use selective interpretations and misreadings of the Mahabharata to fulfill an agenda. If you have an agenda, fine, say so upfront and say that, doesn't matter what the Mahabharata says, I have an agenda and therefore I'm going to say something per that agenda. The Mahabharata doesn't bear this out.
Sir, in the Vana Parva, I think they go in an exile and they get a transformation over there. They get some gyans over there as well. So can we say that is a phase of a transformation for the Pandavas, especially Yudhishthira? In that case, they went on a transformation, that Vana Parva. What is your take on that, sir?
It is, of course it is, because going into the forest was also a metaphor for removing yourself from society and spending the time in penance and worship and meditation and getting jnana. Yudhishthira also undergoes that same transformation. In fact, in a very literal way, at the start of the Aranyak Parva, the Van Parva, when the Vanvas period has started for the Pandavas, Draupadi asks, and then Bhim and others also ask Yudhishthira why he is unwilling to fight and take back his kingdom, because they say Shakuni is cheated and what he has done is not right. Yudhishthira first says, no, I cannot go back on my word and all that. And when they keep pressing him, he says that I cannot because we do not have any allies. Other than Drupad and the Vrishnis of Dwarka, we don't have any allies. So we don't have any weapons and we will have to fight the likes of Bhishma and Drona and Kripacharya and Duryodhan and Karna and all. We don't have the weapons. So Arjun goes to Indralok to get the knowledge of the Pashupatastra and other divine celestial weapons. Second, during the entire course of the 12 years, the Pandavas are visited by sages one after the other, whether it is sage Brihadashva or Narad or Markandeya. They all come and they keep telling him, giving him pieces of advice, and you have a lot of upakhyanas that take place during that time. At the end of one such upakhyana, the Nal Damayanti upakhyana, sage Brihadashva actually teaches Yudhishthira how to play dice. So, in a very, very literal way, Yudhishthira enters the Van Parv not knowing how to gamble, how to play dice. He exits it having learned how to play it. So, it is a period of learning for him.
Sir, in the Virata Parva, that is they identify their hidden strength and reveal it after some time of or later in the war. So, can we tell that the Pandavas came to know that, okay, the constant display is not the power. You have to show yourself whenever it is needed. It is not that all the time you show yourself, or all the time you show your power as well. So, what is that Virata Parva in the Mahabharata teaches to us as well as the Pandavas as well, sir?
Yudhishthira has to learn how to be an advisor to a king. A person who has been a prince and a king has to learn how to serve under a king. And here their guru, sage Dhaumya, actually has to teach Yudhishthira how to do that. And he tells him that, when a king laughs, you should also laugh. Don't laugh like a madman, and, don't criticize a king too many times. Kings don't like being criticized and all. Bhim, the strongest of them, has to learn how to, spend time in the kitchen. Just as Nala had to become a cook. When in the Nal Damayanti Upakhyana, Bhim has to becomes Vallabh, a cook. He can't show any strength in the kitchen. He's not a wrestler or anything like that. And yet it is that show of strength that Bhim indulges in when Draupadi goes to Bhim and says that Kichak wants to molest me and Yudhishthira won't do anything. And then Bhim says that, yes, fine, I'll kill Kichak and call him to the dancing hall, and Kichak comes there, where you have a very humorous exchange happens that takes place between Bhim and Kichak, where Bhim dresses himself up disguises himself up as a woman, and when Kichak comes at night, he says, I want to embrace you, and Bhim tells him, you're going to be embraced like you have never been embraced before in your life. And he goes to beat Kichak to death. And he beats him so much that when the next day people come, they say that we can't make out where the head is, where the arms are, where the legs are. This incident, when it reaches through Duryodhan's spies, when it reaches Duryodhan, his mind starts thinking that who in Bharatvarsh has the strength to kill Kichak? And then we are not told in as many words, but that also becomes the catalyst for the raid on Virat by Duryodhan and the Kauravas. They say the intent is that we'll steal the cows of Virat, but who knows, maybe the Duryodhan suspected something. So a show of strength all the time can also have its disadvantages.
Sir, in the present day context, I think Udyoga Parva needs to be told in a detailed manner as well, because the Udyoga Parva deals with the diplomacy, and I'll bring one more topic of Dharma as well. Can we compare diplomacy and Dharma whenever it is needed? Because Dharma is according to the situation, whatever is right, it is right. So it is you can't go war at any time. You should go at war whenever it is needed. You can't go at peace at any time. You should be in peace whenever it is needed. So it is the diplomacy where you can say peace in a soft power and war in a hard power as well. So can Dharma and diplomacy can be compared, or can we come to a conclusion that is a both or two sides of a coin? And an add-up question to this is, how do you tell diplomacy or the Udyog Parv in the present day? As again, I bring in the Palgam and the India-Pakistan situation as well.
One of the most insightful passages in the Udyog Parv is actually something that some people might have read and heard of as Vidur Niti. So this takes place in the middle of the night in the Prajagar Parv. The Vidur Nitis contained mostly within the Prajagar Parv in the Vidur Parv, Udyog Parv, sorry, where Sanjay comes at the middle of he comes back from Upaplavya and says that I have delivered the message, and Dhritarashtra can't wait, and he calls Sanjay in, and Sanjay says has some very harsh words for Dhritarashtra. Sanjay didn't shy from speaking the truth. This disturbs Dhritarashtra so much that he calls for Vidur in the middle of the night and asks Vidur a lot of questions, and Vidur's advice is something that I think everyone should read. This one and the other piece of similar advice is given right many years back by Narad to Yudhishthir and the Pandavas in what is called as the Narad Niti or the Narad Gita. Point being that the Pandavas, even though there's a section in the Pandavas that want war, Yudhishthir is very clear that we have to do everything we can to avoid war. All of the negotiations are towards that end, so much so that even Krishna goes to Hastinapur with a message of peace. He's not going there to incite the Pandavas for war. On the other hand, once war is decided, Duryodhan sends his brother with a message he says that, okay, insult the Pandavas, incite them for war, which is bizarre given that war has already been decided. And the poor guy, thankfully, because it is against Niti to kill a messenger, that's the only reason why he comes back alive. But the message is that you have to then you have to decide for peace as long as you can. Once it is no longer an option, you have to go for war. And the only outcome of a war should be victory. I don't know how else to put it to people today that once the enemy has decided they don't want peace, you cannot be one of two sides arguing for peace. If the other side doesn't want peace, then what options do you have?
Sir, in the Sauptika Parva, that's where Ashwatthama takes revenge and he breaks the war rules and does the genocide as well. And he is cursed by Krishna. And why did Ashwatthama go that much after breaking all those things and being so adharmic in that context especially? What made him to do that actually?
I don't know what caused Ashwatthama to go so wrong that not only does he enter the Pandav camp in the middle of the night, kills the 5 sons of Draupadi, then goes into Dhrishtadyumna's tent, doesn't kill him with weapons, sits on his chest and beats him to death, saying that you do not deserve the death of a warrior, you deserve to die in this manner. You can perhaps argue that he was appalled, he was aghast by what he thought was the unfair means by which Duryodhan was defeated, and therefore he did all of this, because we are also told that when the three warriors, Kritvarma, Kripacharya and Ashwathama, when they enter the Pandav camp, they are met by a very flaming figure and all, and they worship it, and it turns out that it is Mahadev himself who says that fine, you have my approval, my permission to enter the camp. So all of this happened because of Shiva's approval. But it doesn't explain what Ashwathama does next. He fires off the Brahmastra. Arjun fires off the Brahmastra. Vedvyasa comes in and says that, withdraw your weapon. Arjun withdraws the weapon. Ashwathama says, I don't know how to withdraw it, so I'll change its direction in the direction of the womb of the Pandav princess, which is Uttara. Essentially doing what can be called nothing else than feticide. Killing a fetus inside the womb of the mother, that is a sin, gravest sin that you can think of. This is what leads Krishna to curse. Krishna curses one and only one person in the entire war, which is Ashwathama. So no wonder Ashwathama is cursed to spend 3000 years on earth, roaming with a festering wound and not be recognized by anyone.
Give us a glimpse about the Brahmastra, because that is where that is the powerful weapon in the world, which is considered till date. Who all had the Brahmastras, and where all it has been used? And once you told Ashwathama used it, and I think Arjuna had one, and Karna I think had one as well. So give us a glimpse about the usages of Brahmastra and Brahmastra as well. What's the story behind all these people having the Brahmastra, sir?
I had once done a count of who all had the Brahmastra, but I have forgotten, frankly, who all had that. But you're right.
Okay. It's more than these three.
Several warriors had it, because it is one of the things with Brahma was that if you worshipped him, he would give boons. He would give boons. He would not worry about the consequences. The consequences were left to poor Vishnu and Shiva to deal with the consequences. He is the one who gave the boon to Ravan, and it fell upon Vishnu to be incarnated as Rama to do that. He is the one who gave the boon to the three Rakshas brothers who built Tripura, and it fell upon Shiva to then destroy the city of Tripura. So Brahma was not very, he said, whoever worships me will get a boon. I can't differentiate between the Devas and the Asuras. I'll give boons to everyone.
But in today's context, people are very rarely worshipping Brahma. So you are indirectly saying to gain power we should worship Brahma, or it is like we
should worship knowledge.
Okay.
Brahma is a giver of knowledge.
Yeah,
we need
exactly.
to worship knowledge. Knowledge is what will get us out of difficult situations. We seem to have demonized the worship of acquisition of knowledge in this era. On Karna, right, we can perhaps talk about it later also, but Karna had not one but two unmistakable weapons with him, and both of them unfortunately or fortunately didn't do their job. We are told he had, obviously we are told that he had the Kavach and Kundal that he was born with, and he couldn't be killed as long as he wore that Kavach and Kundal, and Indra came in the guise of a Brahman and asked him for that, and we are told that Karna said that he gave it away as a Dan because he was Danveer Karna, which is not correct. The Mahabharata itself tells us that Karna refused to give the Kavach and Kundal. He said, because Kshatriya Dharma says that if I give you my Kavach and Kundal, I am likely I'll be vulnerable, liable to be killed. I can't do that. I will give it to you as an exchange. And he says that I will give you, Indra, my Kavach and Kundal, and return you give me my Shakti. Indra says that I'll give you the Shakti, it will kill 1,000,000 people, 1,00,000 people if you want, it cannot miss. That is my weapon's promise to you. but you can only fire it once and it will come back to me. Karna says that I don't want to kill a lakh or a million, I just want to kill one. Indra says, fine, I know who you want to kill. Let me also tell you that the one you want to kill is protected by none other than Narayan. And there is the perfect setting. I mean, you cannot think of a better, in a movie, if you had to come up with such a plot and a point, you couldn't come up with something better than this. As we know, Karna ended up using the Shakti to fire and aim and fire it at Ghatotkach and killed him on the night of the 14th day of the war. The other weapon that Karna had was, know about that weapon, we have to go many years back when the Khanda forest was burnt down at the request of Agni by Krishna and Arjuna. In that forest, you had the Takshak's wife and children who were there. Takshak's wife was killed in that fire, the sons escaped. One of the sons was a serpent named Ashvasen. Ashvasen wanted revenge against Arjuna all his life after that. He got his opportunity when he became the arrowhead on one of Karna's arrows, and on the 17th day of battle, Karna fires that arrow at Arjuna. It would have killed Arjuna without fail. We know Arjuna survives. How? Sri Krishna presses his toe on the ground. The chariot sinks by just a few inches, exactly, and the arrow takes off Arjuna's crown, not his head.
Okay.
So, we say that you have a plan A, you have a plan B. Karna had both a plan A and a plan B that couldn't miss.
Because of Krishna.
Because of Krishna. So, I say that, even in a war, you need God on your side. Arjuna had Krishna on his side.
Okay.
Karna did not have Krishna on his side. He had Shalya on his side. And the mirror opposites they were of each other. So when people say that they want to make Karna a hero, I say that please, for heaven's sake, I beg of you, read the Mahabharata.
Sir, since you mentioned this a special scenario, I just want to bring in the killing of Duryodhana, especially while Krishna would be signing off that thigh especially, and that Duryodhana would automatically jump and beam will splash him like anything. Just give us a glimpse about that scenario as well, sir.
So this is also, okay, we said that, we talked about that how Yudhishthir learned a lot during the 12 years of exile. He learned, but he didn't learn enough, because when Duryodhan comes out of the water and Yudhishthir says that, now you have to fight. The most obvious candidate would have been for Yudhishthir to say that, you will fight Bhim. Yudhishthir doesn't do that. He says that fight whoever you want amongst us. And based on the decision of that fight, the entire war will be decided. If you are the winner, you win the war. Now imagine if Duryodhan had said that I want to fight Sahadev or Nakul, the weaker of the 5 Pandavas. That was a gambler's instinct that had still not completely left Yudhishthir. Krishna says as much. He says that so when Duryodhan's ego comes into play and he says that, forget all the others, I'll fight Bhim because he's my equal and I will love killing Bhim. Now here, Krishna says that in a fair fight, Bhim cannot defeat Duryodhan.
Okay.
Because Bhim is the stronger of the two, but Duryodhan is the more skillful. He has had more practice. He says in a fair fight, the two, there's only one outcome. And if Duryodhan wins, it is going to be a victory of Adharma. So Krishna does what Krishna does. And I see that there's nothing wrong in it. When a war is declared, you have to do what you have to do to win a war. The Kauravas broke all the rules of the war to begin with. Why should the Pandavas hold themselves to an ideal that the Kauravas did not?
As simple as that.
As simple as that.
Got it, sir. Sir, let us also discuss a glimpse of all these remaining parvas as well. In the Sri and Shanti parvas, we can see that the Yudhishthira's reluctant rule and the political wisdom as well. So, how long the discourses of the Shanti parva, I mean the statescraft in that Shanti parva, still applies to today's leaders as well, because that is the political wisdom which we can carry from that time to today. It will be relevant in every time, we can say. And the Mahabharata rarely centers women, but in the Sri Parva, their grief shakes every ground. Why is that important actually? Because the Sri and Shanti Parva has been one of the most important or most eye-opening chapters as well. So how do you describe both the chapters, sir?
See, in the Shanti Parva itself is divided into 3 Upaparvas.
Okay.
Raj Dharma, Apad Dharma, Dharma Parva, and then going into the Anushasan Parva, you also have the Moksha Dharma Parva. But there is a reason why the Shanti Parva is divided into these 3 Parvas. The Raj Dharma, as the name suggests, is where Bhishma tells Yudhishthira on what the duties of a king have to be in normal times. But for a king and a kingdom, not all the times will be normal. You will have times of distress. That is where the teachings of the Apad Dharma Parva come into play. When things are not good, when the kingdom is besieged, when there is a time of distress, there's a completely different dharma that applies, and that is the Apad Dharma. For example, one of the lessons that Bhishma has for Yudhishthira is that when a king has to strike the enemy, don't give them any hint that you're going to do that. You should speak sweet words to the enemy before striking. After you have struck the enemy, you should still continue to speak sweet words, which means deception is the order of the day when you are dealing with an enemy. There is no, be goody two shoes kind of an attitude. Apad Dharma is, I think, the one parva that our leaders today need to read and read again. They should read it every morning and every night before they go to bed. Because as someone has said, the Shatru Bodh aspect is something that we have probably forgotten. We need to revive that knowledge. On the Stri Parva, when you say the depictions of the Kuru women as they go one by one and they see their dead husbands fallen, it's heartrending. The descriptions of each one of them is heartbreaking when you read about those accounts. So much so that Gandhari cannot bear it any longer after she goes to Dushasan and then Duryodhan's corpses lying on the battlefield, and the descriptions talk about wild animals eating the flesh of the dead warriors, which is why I said that war is not pretty. It's not good in that sense. It leads her then to utter that famous curse on none other than Sri Krishna. 36 years from now, just as the Kuru women are weeping, so will your women weep.
Sir, the Anushana Parva and the Ashwamedhika Parva, and Yudhishthira receives the rules for ruling. But do those teachings reflect idealism or political realism? Because, and I will add up one more question in the Ashwamedhika Parva. What does Yudhishthira's Ashwamedha Yagnas say about kingship and remorse? Because it is the ritual redemption which has been happening over there. So tell us about these things which Yudhishthira has been doing and what Yudhishthira has been brought up to.
Even if you look at it, the Ashwamedha Parva and the Yagya, what is fascinating is that Yagyas and Yudhishthira have a very, very long and contentious relationship. Many years ago, it was a Rajsuya Yagya that Yudhishthira performed, and there was the Digvijay Yatra that was done by the 4 Pandavas in all 4 directions, and all the kings submitted towards the Pandavas, and then you had the Rajsuya Yagya, which continued very, very successfully till the very end, except that you had the death of Shishupal, which starts a chain reaction which ends up in the Dyut Parva and Yudhishthira losing all his wealth. Many years later, when you have the Ashwamedha Yagya, there also everything goes off well. Even before that, the fact is that Yudhishthira says, I do not have any money left to perform the Yagya, and then they are told that there is a store of wealth in the Himalayas that you can go and get, and they use that, go and they get that wealth hidden in a cave, and they use that wealth to perform the yajna, because when you're performing a yajna, you have to give dan and dharma also. At the end of the Ashwamedh yajna, we are told that there is a mongoose who comes, half whose body is golden, half is it's a natural color. On the food grains that are left over, it rolls itself near the the Vedika and the Vedi, and says the punya from this yajna is not equal to the grains that were left over by at a particular Brahman's yajna and all. So there's a very interesting thing there about yajnas that I really, to be honest, can't put my finger on, but there is something peculiar about Yudhishthira and yajnas, and this need for Yudhishthira to have yajnas, time and again, to prove maybe his right to rule over the world and the kingdom. To be honest, I don't know.
Sir, in the Mausala Parva, why does Krishna allow to destroy his own clan? Because it is a divine plan or the karma catching up? Because that's where we should describe about Sri Krishna's plan also. And I'll add one more question. I'll finish all those parvas and then I'll have some follow-up questions as well. In the Mahaprasthanika Parva, the Pandavas walk towards the Himalayas. Why must, even after winning everything, they leave everything behind? This is the one thought which everyone had to put up as well. So why does Yudhishthira have to walk through hell before heaven? And what does it say about the justice and judgment in the Mahabharata? This is the three questions in the last three chapters, sir.
So in the Musal Parv, first of all, when 36 years ago, when Gandhari utters her curse, there's a very, very interesting thing that Krishna responds with. Krishna says that, I know you have cursed me, I know it will come true, but it will come true only because I wish it so. So first of all, yes, it is Krishna's divine plan. The second is that what triggers the start of these events 36 years later, it is when Samba and the other Vrishni princes go in front of, who are the three sages? There's sage Kanva, Narad, and I think Vishwamitra. I think these are the three sages, and they try to play a prank on them by disguising one of the princes, I think Samba, as a woman, and saying that, who will it be, a boy or a girl? And they curse them, saying that what you will give birth is to something that will destroy your entire clan. The fact is that I think there had been a fair amount of pride, arrogance and hubris that had also emerged in the Vrishnis by that time. Having spent his life in bringing some of the kings of the Mahajanpads under his control, or by eliminating some of these evil ones, like whether it was now Krishna knew that if left to their own devices, the Vrishnis will become the new tyrants, the ruler, the despots of Bharatvarsh. So it was also his divine plan. And in fact, Krishna himself picks up the sword when the Yadavs collect at Prabhas, and that's where 50,000 of them end up killing each other. 50,000 in those times is a huge number.
Understood, sir.
Now, the other thing that you had was that why does Yudhishthira have to see hell and spend some time there? For all the punya and the pap, you have to do an accounting. Chitragupta is not going to let you go without doing his accounting. What pap did Yudhishthira, commit?
What do we call it in English? Prayachit, right?
You have to do the prashchit. You have to, you have to do the penance to account for the sins. So, leaving aside the fact that whether it was a punya or pap, his taking of Draupadi, and I think it was not, it was pap, but the one we are told that he had to do was the lie that he uttered during the Kurukshetra war, when he said that Ashwathama was dead. When they are asked, when Dronacharya comes and says that, you tell me, is Ashwathama dead? Because what Bhim has done is he has taken an elephant called Ashwathama and killed him. And then he goes to the Yudhishthira and says, okay, I've killed Ashwathama, but it's an elephant. No, but it is Ashwathama, right? Can you tell that to Drona? And when Dronacharya asks him, because he knows that Yudhishthira is not going to lie, and he asks him, is it true that Ashwathama is dead? Yudhishthira says Ashwathama is dead, the elephant, and then a lot of sound and kettle drums are beaten to drown out that particular bit, but it was a partial lie that Yudhishthira uttered, for which he has to pay the price.
That's why
That's why he has to glimpse hell.
Understood.
Narak, he has to get a glimpse of that.
So here are some general questions for an author. Sir, how do you balance being a technologist as well as philosopher? Because especially as writing a book like Vyasa's Mahabharata, you would be a much more of a philosophical range, and I think you are a philosopher. And so how do you balance both, sir?
I'll say this, the whatever knowledge of the Mahabharata that I have got, I am indebted, grateful to Sri Vivek Dabroy and his translation, because the Mahabharata has existed for thousands of years. Even before he translated it, there were translations of K.M. Ganguly and others that were available. It is through his writings that that knowledge came to me, whatever it did. So my eternal pranam to him. The second is that my reading and my writing typically happens only on weekends. Weekdays are for artha, weekends are for dharma.
Understood. So this is how you balance.
This is the only balance that works for me. There are people who can balance both even during weekdays. I am not as good.
Were there any surprises you encountered while researching the original Sanskrit text and or the traditional commentaries? Were there any surprises?
What struck me was that things are not as black and white as we tend to believe even about the Mahabharata. Every character has got shades of grey, and that I think is navigating that river of grey is how it can lead us to good, true insights about the epic. To paint people as black and white and all, I think is somewhat immature, because the Mahabharata tells us dharma itself is very, very subtle, it's sukshma. As we discussed, Bhishma is someone who knows everything about dharma, and yet he is the one, when asked by Draupadi that have I been lost or not in this game of dice, tell me, he is unable to give a clear-cut answer. I think that more than anything else was my insight, that the things are not black and white, they are grey, and we have to navigate life and the epic in all its shades of black, white, grey, and in between.
Have you noticed different reaction from readers in India versus the diaspora when it comes to your work on Mahabharata?
I hope more people read my book on the Mahabharata and then comment on it. But I think there are one reaction that I've got is that they find it a lot of they found a lot of the footnotes and the references that I have provided. They have liked those. Even though it is a book written for the common, popular, modern, urban audience and all, but the fact that I put in about 1,000 references in it, I think has appealed to some readers at least, that they've been able to go back and look at, fact check, so to say, in a way.
So this has been prevailing, as you said, for thousands and thousands of years. When it comes to convincing the audience or convincing the your listeners as well, because your generation is different, my generation is different, and the upcoming 2K generation is very, very different. And so how do you, what challenges have you encountered while convincing different kinds of generation when you speak about something, when you write about something, sir?
I think the way in which knowledge is being consumed today is much different than what it was even 10 years ago. The rise of the internet and social media, and especially a trend which has been accelerated by COVID, has been the video form of consuming information. For better or worse, this is the way a lot of people are consuming information, and especially through these 1 minute, 2 minute short videos. So I think it is incumbent on both sides for people putting out this information to make sure that they are not distorting things for the sake of clickbait, and it is incumbent on the part of the viewers, I think, to put in the effort to make sure that they consume information that is authentic. Often enough we fall for things that are slickly presented, but are not grounded in fact.
If you could have dinner with one character of the Mahabharata, who would it be?
Oh,
What would you ask them?
well,
It is Sri Krishna,
if
obviously.
you ask me 10 names, I'll say, number 1 to 10 would be Sri Krishna.
Okay, if only one, then it is Sri Krishna.
Only one, it's Sri Krishna.
Okay, sir. So, one moral lesson that Mahabharata guided your life.
It is from the Bhagavad Gita. It is the 47th shloka from the second adhyaya of the Bhagavad Gita, which I think encapsulates the entire message of the Mahabharata itself, which is karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phal hetur bhurmate sangostava karmani, that we have the right to action. We don't have the right to the fruits, and whichever way people interpret it and all, I'll say that the lesson, once you understand it or once you figure out how it applies to your life, is just amazing. It frees you from a lot of grief and sorrow, I think, in life, otherwise that you might have on account of expectations.
One last question. What is your next work going to be on, sir? It is Idihasas or a kind of a person who is prey and predators where an NSA is dealt with. So what is your next work going to be, sir?
Knowing that I am horrible at writing books fast enough,
okay,
given that since 2000, in the last 5.5 years, I've written only 2 books. With that caveat, I'll say that one is I've been working on a sequel for Predators and Prey.
How?
Let's hope I can finish it soon enough. I'll not put any timeline, because for the last 1.5 years, I've been putting timelines and not meeting them. The second is that I have 2 books on the Mahabharata itself that I'm working on. And one of those books is something that that is really close to my heart. I hope I can finish it sometime this year.
Totally 3 books which is upcoming in the next few years.
In the next few years, let's
all the best, sir, all the best. So thank you so much for your wonderful time, sir. It is always a pleasure talking to you. I hope once all these 3 books are getting released, I'll do exciting podcast with you. Thank you so much for
anytime.
your time,
Looking forward to it, and thank you for inviting me to your
podcast.
podcast.
Thank you, sir.